Okay, everything you need to know, denim campaigns, everybody's talking about it. We had to get in on the conversation.
Yeah, so what started as a denim conversation has really turned into what is happening in marketing right now. How are people really, marketing is no longer a dirty word. That has changed the game. Performance marketing is over, and these types of campaigns are kind of really responding to that or not responding to that. We talk about people who are not. So it's an interesting conversation through the lens of denim, but it's really
Yes.
about the future of marketing or where
Right,
we're at
exactly.
in marketing right now.
Right. And a lot of insights and takeaways from a campaign, but also a long term, like really taking consumers along the journey. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Hey everyone, it's Chris.
And Kirsten.
Welcome to Good Thinking Weekly, the podcast where we discuss the best of the best in brands, marketing, and culture.
Thousands of people, top execs from the likes of Complex, Klaviyo, Walmart, Wall Street Journal, and LVMH tune in every single week.
We run a creative consultancy in Good Co, so we know what it takes to build a good brand.
Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and Good Thinking on Substack for more.
All right, let's dive in.
We'll make this work.
Welcome back to Good Thinking.
It didn't do the countdown. Are you sure it's recording?
It did the countdown. I saw it.
Oh, all right.
You're not paying
Hi,
attention?
everyone. We're here and clearly not having any technical difficulties. Anyway, it will surprise no one that we wanted to talk about the denim campaigns today. Because honestly, how could, I actually resisted really hard to not. I didn't try to talk about American Eagle when it happened. Like I deliberately chose to omit versus enter the fray of the American Eagle conversation. But I think we should talk about that. We should talk about everything that's happening in these denim campaigns and why they're happening. What do you think?
Yes, I'm in. I did not refrain from talking about the American Eagle thing, shared
Yeah,
my
why didn't
thoughts.
people about what you wrote in your post? Because if they didn't read it, I can link to it.
Yeah.
Just the same.
It was just really my perspective around everybody going, oh, they're this, they're that. And again, like, I think it's really beautiful. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Mine is just having been an employee at American Eagle, having been a part of that brand and coming in very early to really establish the brand and what we were able to do at that time. It was really a brand for everyone. It was really about, it was the time when Abercrombie was really cool and, untouchable and kind of this. And then Gap was like, it was all about price point and not as much kind of personality, and really coming in to articulate what that meant and really create that brand, knowing kind of the fundamentals from my perspective. I just think that people are asking the wrong questions. I think it's not about a blame game or was this significant or is the backers of this. I think it's really about across the board. And I think we'll talk about it today. What do you want to be creating in a campaign? I think marketing right now is so divisive. I think the fact that we're going to talk about denim, people haven't, denim is a part of back to school. It's been a part of back to school forever. But the fact that these campaigns are really coming into the fray, and as we talked about before, we started recording, we're all talking about campaigns more than we ever have. And I think campaigns are pushing it. And I think they're pushing it in different ways. And you're seeing the personality of different brands. And so I think what's really important is, what do you want to be creating? What's the impact you want to have long term? What's the big vision you want to have? And I think asking those big questions, because some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, some people are going to feel connected with, some people aren't. But I think it's really important for a company to really dig deep and figure out what they want to be creating versus chasing something.
What do you think American Eagle's chasing?
I think a lot of brands, I think being cool, being relevant, chasing, being the next thing, being talked about, being kind of all these parts and pieces versus really standing for who they know and believe themselves to be and aspiring to be something that's positively impacting the audience that they have and the impact. We created a campaign called Live Your Life, which was when I was at American Eagle, which was a very empowering, meant to be, and I think it was, especially from the comments I got, a very empowering campaign to basically say, like, hey, wherever you're at, like, that's cool. Like, you do you, and we're in support of that. Not you have to be this or be the cool kid or be the rich kid or be this. It was just really about supporting that. And I think it allowed people to feel seen and to feel okay with where they are. And I think it's a really such an important demographic because it's such an important time in everybody's life. And so I think to really be on the side of empowering and positively impacting versus trying to be the coolest or be this and that, like, to me is way more powerful, way more powerful.
Yeah. Do you think that this was I feel like the word of the week is rage bait. Everybody is like, "Rage, this is rage bait." Do you think that they thought that this was rage bait? Like, they wanted to just or do you think they didn't even see it? Because I think they didn't even see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I
my personal take that I really don't believe, and I know some really wonderful humans that are still there, and I don't think that this was a deliberate, and that is just my perspective. I don't think this was a deliberate. No, I
doesn't
don't think
make
it was.
it excusable, just makes it like for me, it changes the view on it is like, it's more I think, the underpinnings of how we got here, that's a whole thing. But it's just like to me, it's what's so funny is like I have been lying in bed for a week now in the US listening to my podcast as I fall asleep, which is, my food podcast.
Yes.
Having Sydney Sweeney like say words that make no sense to me in my head. She's like, I you shouldn't have to make me. I'm not gonna try to make you make these jeans. Like it literally like what bothers me most about this campaign is it's nonsense.
Mm.
Like it doesn't like that's what bothers me the most is like it's like okay, like you're not trying to be like what are we trying to say here about these jeans other than, do you want to be Sydney Sweeney? Like that's probably the only thing that's coming out of this campaign, which really, to be honest, is just not enough to go on.
Right. And I think that's part of it. I think it was a very what they saw as a very aspirational campaign that went the wrong direction. And I think the point is it was fun. Maybe if it was really aspirational and really like, you took people along, maybe it would have done something and moved the needle, obviously in a different way, aspirational. But I think we're all asking, how did this happen? And I think it's really truly is about like, what do brands want to make happen? And I think moving away from this like purely aspirational, like, oh, let's make it only about this untouchable, inaccessible version of ourselves, which I think American Eagle can bounce between for sure. Let's move into the aspect and they also have the potential of really leaning into the live your life, what they did with Aerie as a brand, like really making people feel seen and heard and comfortable with wherever they are versus feeling like they have to get up there, which is kind of Abercrombie's old model. And interesting to see things shifting specifically as we see these denim campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, well, that segues us nicely into the snooze festival that is the
It does.
Abercrombie campaign. I mean, could you find anything that feels more derivative and boring than this Abercrombie campaign? I mean, so for those who haven't seen it, I'll link to it in the Substack. I mean, it's exactly like if you closed your eyes and you just picture like a white seamless with white t-shirt, white, tank top,
Yeah,
blue
it's old Calvin
jeans,
Klein. It's old Calvin Klein.
script font that's written in some crayon looking thing that says something that you like, like completely uninspiring, but also like not upsetting anybody. That is the Abercrombie campaign.
Right. So yeah, it's totally taken from kind of the old Calvin, not as uniquely
But not
shot.
inspiring as
No,
a Calvin. Like,
agreed.
I think
Agreed.
so what you see in the Abercrombie campaign is that you see a performance marketing campaign. So that is what used to work. So like those were the assets that you would create if you were going to create a performance marketing like, it's going to show up nicely in Google Ads and like da 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 and like these are the assets and it just looks like something that works well in a banner, works well in a little like ad on the side. And to be honest, like I think, one of the things I think also American Eagle didn't really think through like how the assets of their campaign work. And then you look at Gap and you see that they thought through like how do people want to share campaigns today? Like how do they want to participate in a campaign? And it's not through nobody's using Google anymore. So those Google ads, they're gone. Like just stop making them, like save yourselves. Yeah, so I think, when you look at Abercrombie, like the thing that makes me laugh is that those ads are performance marketing ads, right? Like they are the little box that you see in Google that perfect thing. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. Nobody's using Google. Like, they've got to figure that out. But like, the bigger picture is that, performance marketing ads are going away. And the things that are working on social media in terms of ads are the natural sharing, like ads that are Gap. Like, of course, like that cat's eye video is like, of course I want to share that. I'm never going to share Abercrombie's weird random denim ad with anyone.
Right. Right. And I would say that also goes to like you can go back and you can see you sent me some great breakdown of kind of what it would look like in the marketing room, what it would look like in kind of that decision room. And I think it's
Yes.
performance marketing, but I think it's also you can see them going, internally going, oh, well, it's just a nice, iconic campaign. It's simple. It's not going to ruffle anybody's feathers, but it's reestablishing us as a really iconic brand, Abercrombie, blah, blah, blah. It's doing all of these things. And to your original point, even with the AE campaign, it just doesn't make you really feel anything. And I think, yes, okay, performance marketing, but I think also we are in the marketing realm of like, you've got to say something. You've got to
Right.
push, and it's not just about the product and beautiful models and a simple kind of iconic background. Like, you've got to say more, you got to tell more of a story. The bar has been raised, and what is it that you are doing from a impact messaging standpoint, but also from a creative, content standpoint? How are you entertaining us? And Gap
Yeah.
is
Uh,
definitely doing that.
right. And I think one of the things that's interesting about the Gap, like, I don't know if you noticed this, because I don't think you read as many Substacks as I do, but
No,
like,
no, I don't. No, I don't.
um, is that they did an advertising like segment inside of Casey Lewis's after school newsletter, and it wasn't about the denim. It was about the campaign. They advertised their own advertising campaign.
Mm.
And I think that that is kind of what, like, is happening right now, is that, like, it's not like to say, like, "Oh, you need to advertise your advertising campaign," but it's more to say that the conversations being had now, and this goes back to something we've talked about before, is that marketing is no longer a dirty word. So during performance marketing
Yes.
eras, we were like all UGCing it up and like making the blandest ads. And it was like, kind of like it's, the aspect ratios of this and this and this. And like, can we make sure that the photography like works for these like ridiculous banner ads that are like pixel high? And that is no longer.
I think you're absolutely right in that it's a new era of marketing. And I think the denim campaign seasonality that we're talking about is a perfect example of that. And the things that are really resonating and the things that are going to continue to resonate is moving out of the performance marketing, moving out of the kind of blanding, and moving into things that have more impact, more storytelling, more entertainment, that actually say something. And I think that's where, and that was kind of tying back to my LinkedIn post on AE, it's like, what is the impact that you want to be having? And figure that out. You can see the diversity in Gap's campaign. You can see the energy, the positivity from the music that was chosen. You can see kind of all of these parts and pieces that they created and wanted to share in this campaign. And it's inspiring. And I think that's the most important thing, is what is the impact? And you look at Abercrombie's, and they wanted to hit some performance measures, some kind of marketing performance measures. They wanted to create something that felt maybe iconic, but also, didn't piss anybody off. Like, you can kind of see the boxes that everybody's looking to check. And I think those that are able to really raise the bar and do so in a more dynamic, pushing their brand, but doing it in a way of, for me, positive impact, uh, inspiring versus, this aspirational, like, oh, just a few of you can try to be like this. Like, that's not interesting to anybody anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think to me, like what's happening is like marketing. So yeah, like you're marketing your marketing campaign, right? Like you're on Substack marketing your marketing campaign. And I think one of the things that comes from like what's happening now is that people want to unpack where you're going as a brand. That's why we're talking about campaigns. That's what's interesting. It's not your fucking campaign that's interesting to people. It's where you're going. Your campaign is a representation of the steps you are taking on the path to your brand's greatness, right? Like, you know, like you're on the ladder and you're going up, and these are the rungs that are getting you to like this like positioning place. And so what I think Gap has done really well over the last couple of years, right? It's the very first campaign that they did like this. It was a throwback campaign, but it felt super right for where you wanted, like where we've all wanted the brand to go. But it didn't feel like, oh my gosh, like so different to who they are and what they stand for, right? It felt like a really modern distillation of like where it should be going. And then they've just been building on that. Like each campaign is getting more entertaining, more provocative, trying harder, putting in the effort, but it's all like laddering up, right? Like you're seeing the active repositioning of this brand. And that is what is entertaining people. It is not just the one campaign, it is watching you ladder yourself up to where you're going and people spending time thinking about where you're going as a brand. And what, for me, American Eagles does not do is like it took this thing that we didn't really know what they were doing as a brand, and then they just said, here's where we're going. And you're like, really? That's where we're going? Like, and you had no idea why you were we have no idea why we're going in this direction because you've done no work to get us there. And the direction you're headed in is not clear, right? It's not like, you're not like, this is like, I see where we're going here. Like, where are we going after this? Where is the brand going after this moment? 0 places. They're just going 0 places.
Yes.
And, you know, like, that's why, like, it's not to say, like, you can't do sexy, because I would, like, bring it around to the Diesel thing, right? Like, Diesel has been moving in this direction of wanting to be basically the OnlyFans of denim for, like, a solid
You
year
heard
and a
it here
half.
first. I mean, longer than
And,
that, let's be honest.
well, maybe
They've
forever,
been
but, like,
sex
they
forward for a while.
but they really like doubled down, I feel like, in the last year. Like they kind of went through this, they used to be that as a brand.
Yes.
Then they went through this like safety phase where you
Yeah,
were like,
fair enough.
maybe you're a Wrangler brand, but like maybe you're not. And then they went back into the like, no, like let's stop trying to please everyone. Like we're really good at doing this like very sexy brand campaign thing. Like, you know, like not only sexy, but like literally like, let's like make it look like we're on the cusp of having an orgy, having sex. Like they've really leaned into it. But when you look at their social, it's doing well. Like they have a particular audience that they have like turned on this journey, right? Like it's not for me, but that doesn't matter. Like
Right.
the people that they're on that journey with, like it's for them and it works for them. Like, and I think that's what, to me, like I guess like is the journey that American Eagle is on, like are they saying like we're like, you know, to me Sydney Sweeney like represents like, you know, she works on her cars and she's like this good old American girl, but like the truth is that the good old American girl that like everybody's interested in right now is a trad wife, and she's not that either. So it's just very interesting to try to figure out, like, and I think so much of what I think is working for brands right now is like when you see brands like Bobby, right? Like people write about their campaigns, and what's working for them is that you see where they're going as a brand. And you're like, I'm here for this journey. Like, I'm going to talk about your campaign. I'm going to share your things because I resonate with your brand and I see where you're going and I want to be part of that journey. I
Totally.
don't think anyone
Totally.
sees where they're going. I mean, I guess
Well,
there are
or
a
I think it's
segment of
also I
men
think
that
it's
see where they're
right. I mean, I think a lot of people feel like they see where they're going. They just don't want to participate in it. I think that's absolutely right. And I wrote another LinkedIn post, been busy, about
yeah, yeah.
exactly what you said and the journey. And I think that's really it. I think that's why like the Jaguar and Cracker Barrel and all these things of like, hey, look at our logo. Like, here it is. Like nobody cares about your rebrand. Nobody. And I think starting with that versus starting with the journey and the strategy and like the insights that got there, that's much more interesting and that's much more inspiring. And to be taken along through that process, I think is a huge part. And I think a huge opening and direction for brands to really, and the brands that are successful are taking their brand there in social, in marketing campaigns, and all of the parts and places. And I think that's really where brands should really be focused and looking at from their entire consumer journey. What does that look like? But I think it's also the brand values and what they're speaking to are resonating with a particular audience, right? I think Bobby resonates with a particular audience. Aura resonates with a particular audience. Gap resonates with a fairly large audience. I think there's those parts pieces that you feel, yes, they're sharing their journey with me, but also it's a journey that I want to be on.
Yeah. I mean, and one could argue that we're just not the consumer for the American Eagle journey, but I just don't actually see what journey they're on.
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah. I mean, I think it's both. Like, I don't want to be in, if that's their journey, I don't want to be on that one. Should we talk about Lucky?
How could we
Talking
not?
about sex? I mean, well, this is a brand of like, I mean, I guess I know where we're trying to go. To me, this is really trying to get out of, which is the association I have with them, like the soccer mom gene. And I think they're trying to really shed that.
Oh, that this is like the dramatic shedding of the snake skin, if that's what they're doing. Like it's like, wow, then it's like coming up in one, taking off one pair of jeans and putting on a brand new pair of jeans, if that's what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I like Addison Rae, like, you know, like, and again, like with what I don't mind about this one is that this feels to me like what Lucky kind of used to be.
Mm.
Like this was who they were, and they're just like re-pivoting back. But it's nowhere near to me. It's not as shareable and as interesting as the Gap one. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. 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 But I do appreciate that it's a point of view. Okay. Levi's.
Yeah,
I
Levi's.
mean,
Yeah, I mean, so Levi's they've been doing this campaign with Beyonce for a while. You know, and I think the whole like cowboy thing obviously is incredibly like um on vogue, but like what I, you know, Chuka wrote about this a long time ago, and it's something that I feel about Beyonce. Beyonce's music is amazing, right? Like she's incredible,
yes.
but I don't buy products because Beyonce, like nothing about Beyonce makes me want to buy anything. That's just how I feel. Like she's not aspirational from that perspective for me.
I don't know. I think there's certain people. Well, I think neither you nor I are going to look like the way that she looks in the denim in the campaign, but I think there are people that are like, that's fucking my vibe, and I aspire to that for sure. And I think she does. I think there is that, and I think she does that for a certain audience for sure. But I also think what I think is the most interesting part of it is it takes a brand that's iconic. Levi's is certainly an iconic brand, and it makes them relevant in a different way. Like it's in a non-traditional, like really leaning into the cowboy thing, which really leaning into the studs thing, really leaning into kind of that ornate thing. It kind of pushes something in a, like, it's not, you know, here nor there. It's certainly a trend, but it's not, you know, overwhelming. And I think it's interesting for their positioning overall to kind of be a part of the overall, you know, makeup of Levi's.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think is a really interesting, like something that I've been thinking a lot about generally after being back in the States for a year. And I read something that somebody wrote, and I can link to it again in the Substack. And somebody wrote, like, basically, like, it's really hard for me to see brands who are, especially like there's a French brand that uses a lot of like Americana references, right?
American vintage, I think.
Eagles and yeah,
American
like
vintage,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. And that is very much like embedded in the Levi's brand. But what's different is that the today, where we are at right now, is that when I walk down the street and I see an American flag hanging outside of somebody's house in the US today, that is a very different feeling than when it was 20 years ago when you had like patriotism now, and the symbols of like patriotism come with a very weighted cultural message at the moment. And I think it's interesting for Levi's to have to be in this space where that is so much a part of their brand, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
American da 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 da. But then there's this underlying message that they're having to essentially avoid, you know, and I think that that's what makes, for me, like, I don't know, I think Beyonce is incredibly aspirational, but like not, I think that there could be more relevant people to like
Mhm.
push this campaign forward today.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think what they're doing with her is right, but for who they're doing it with doesn't feel right to me. Like when I see Gap, what I like
Yeah.
about Gap is like that they're not like the brands and the people that they're working with, Lisa, are not small creators. Like they're not like tiny TikTok stars. Like these are incredibly enormous musicians, and who they're working with are huge, but they're not the Beyoncés of the world, and it makes it feel much fresher, much more like, oh, you're pushing culture forward versus like leeching off of something that's kind of past.
Yes, I think that is 100% true. I think those are interesting examples because I think that's exactly where my mind was going too, because you can switch them, right? You could see Beyonce doing something for Gap and you could see, kind of a more diverse, like maybe not the kind of as, active as the song and dance. I think that's a very Gap owned creative, but I think that's absolutely right. I think that Levi's, and I think that's honestly where they've been as a brand typically. Like they've leaned more into like a safer, more iconic, like it's not going to move the needle as much. But when they look back 50 years, there's not necessarily going to be any mistakes. Whereas I
Yeah.
think Gap, especially led by Richard, is pushing into territory where they should be. Like they're pushing it. They're doing things that feel very Gap, feel very in what Mickey Drexler kind of created with that iconic space at the very beginning. And I think Richard's doing a really nice job, moving that along and making it feel like really ownable and making us all go, oh yeah, yeah, that is how Gap feels. That is what they should be doing. But it is riskier. It is pushing it more. But I think that's the balance, right? I think that's what we're talking about. It's almost like this performance marketing to, kind of more creative, kind of has more personality and has more messages. And we talked about, the brands being bold from Aura to Bobby to all of those, as well as kind of really pushing it from being a little bit more potentially risky and being a little bit safer. I think that's kind of the Venn diagram.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we like a good brave band, like here on
Yes.
the Good Thinking podcast. But and if there are any that you think we're not talking about, please let me know. But yeah, I think like to me, there it I will say that like, okay, so I think like Levi's is also an incredibly like product led brand, right? I mean, you may feel differently, but they have like these very iconic kind of
Yeah.
like, it's like if the 501s fit you, like you're gonna keep going and buy them. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. They just need to like get the right washes and like you're there.
Milan Levi's.
I mean, okay, just for anyone not understanding, the denim in Italy, for whatever reason, from Levi's is superior to the US, and I can't explain it. But
Yeah.
buy your Levi's in Italy when
Yeah.
you're there. But it's, I think that they are playing it safe. But the truth is that like if they keep playing it safe, like I so AI loves trust, right? So they could always like they'll always recommend like a Levi's. So maybe they don't need to be playing it as safe. But like no one was ever going to recommend a Gap jean, right? Like no one ever in history. So I think they have brand, right? And you have to kind of figure out which one you're going to be. Like I don't think anyone's recommending Lucky Jeans either, like for fit or like
No.
excellence. But like what are they recommending it for now? Like after this Addison Rae campaign, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think, we get contacted by a lot of I think this is the concern of where Levi's could potentially go relying on kind of just the iconic and not pushing forward into relevance, right? We get contacted by a lot of heritage brands that are like, hey, we're still relevant, but we're concerned that, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the line, we're not going to be. Can you help us to really reimagine ourselves so we can truly be relevant? And balancing kind of that heritage, that iconic quality within being relevant is definitely, ebb and flow, but there is a sweet spot within that. And I think especially heritage, especially iconic brands that aren't pushing, that aren't trying, that aren't staying in cultural relevance should be concerned.
Yeah. But I think as you push in, I think you need to consider the fact that everything that you're making now, every campaign that you make is interconnected for the consumer. And I don't think that
Yeah.
like for a long time, I think in the performance marketing mindset world that we were living in for 10 years, basically you didn't really have like any connection between one campaign and the next. Because it was like, you're just pushing it. And the way you received that ad campaign was that you received it like delivered to you. And it was just like, here it is, like, here's an ad, right? It's like you're searching for jeans. And now suddenly you have like everybody delivering their like very generic jean ad because they know you're looking for jeans. I think where we're going now, where things are changing, is that for me, like marketing has entered the conversation and we're all interested in where the conversation is going. Right. And so now every campaign that you're making is connected to the last campaign that you did.
Right.
And that is very like obvious, maybe, but like hasn't been the case for a while.
Oh, I
And
don't
is
think it's
now
obvious
really
because
the
it hasn't been the case. I think you could do one-ofs all the time and you could change, and that's why, and I think they're not just connected, but I think they are the consumer journey. That is literally what you're leading people through. And so I think to be really mindful of that, and then it goes, to what we do and talk a lot about active positioning. Like, how are you, it's even more important to have that long-term strategy of where you're actually going, because everything is so connected and you're sharing kind of along the way, and be really clear on what that is. Like, everybody's waiting. Like, what's American Eagle going to do next? That's
right. Exactly. And where are you going, Lucky, with Addison? Like from
hmm
Addison, where do we move
hmm
here? Like, are we going to another iconic, very large, like another singer? Like it's very
right.
hard. Like what underpins the gap is not like the celebrity is part of the mix, right? So you can see this like formula that they've started to create of like, we're going to go back to our heritage of like these dance commercials. So there's always that's going to inform like how we're picking people, but we also want to pick somebody on the edge, on the forefront, like, and everybody's slightly different so that there's like, because Gap is an enormous brand with an enormous like world of people that it's kind of, and I think like to me, like where you're going, like you kind of always just want to be like, I really like see where they're headed. When Bobby does a campaign, it always feels like it's like, okay, we did this thing and that really worked. And then they like retool the formula and it's still original again, but it's like you can tell where it's going. Right? When they do something, you're like, "Ah, like we were
Yes,
waiting
but
for
it
somebody to drop."
pushes it, right, but it pushes it a little bit more, and it delights you a little bit more every step of the way. They're doing it right, which I think that they are. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it does, it feels connected.
when they
Yes.
did the Molly Baz campaign
Yeah.
thing that they did, right?
Yes.
You knew that only a baron like Bobby would do
Yeah.
something that crazy
Yeah. Yeah.
and that like, you know, like empowering and but also kind of like F you to the system type of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like it felt really like we went up a rung. I mean, what they're gonna do from there, who knows? Because like that was pretty epic.
Right. They'll get on it. They'll get on it. Yeah, and I think that begs to the question of like, okay, Abercrombie, they were becoming really relevant again, and I think so much from a product standpoint, and then I know the team's been working like many years on doing that. A campaign like this that's so vanilla and really doesn't say anything, you know, they have the potential to lose kind of the brand relevancy that they've been gaining. What are they going to do
I think
next?
they already are. I think they already are. And I think like that's the thing is I think for they repositioned in a time when it was very much more like product forward, right? So like
Mhm.
for me, performance marketing was much more product led than it was brand led, right? Like so they
For
repositioned at a
sure.
time like
For
right
sure.
before where it was like, hey, we can push you a pair of jeans. You're going to be like, oh, that's really well styled. I like the way that that looks. You get them, they fit well, you buy them, right? We're not really in that age anymore. That has like withered and died. There's affiliate marketing. And so like that's probably like I would imagine like the majority of their bread and butter right now is coming from people recommending the product because it works. But
Right. Right. Yeah. But I think this is, yeah, we're almost out of time. So I want to be mindful of that. But I think this is a great example, being that it's back to school, being that denim is such an important time, being that there's really, interesting campaigns to be able to talk about. And it's really is this subset to be able to talk about marketing as a larger whole, because it's exactly the conversation of moving from performance to kind of, continuing to tell that consumer journey, continuing to tell your brand story, and being really mindful of the impact you want to be creating.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk, we should have a podcast too about back to school versus like the sorority,
Uh,
like BAMA rush situation too. Because what I think is interesting about all these back to school campaigns is like they're very focused on sort of this college age person. To me, like, all of these campaigns are targeting a slightly older
mhm.
consumer, slightly more aspirational consumer. But the truth is that that consumer right now is watching BAMA rush. They're not watching back to school campaigns. And the people watching back to school campaigns are moms. And the moms, they ain't getting this. Like, this ain't it. It's like, whereas actually, I think the gap is the closest to where you were like, oh, yeah, like, let me also go buy my kids some jeans and myself some jeans at the same time. Because
Yes.
I don't think that back to school now is like back to school as you used to know it. Like, it's not college. That's BAMA rush now. Like, that has taken over the feed. So it's like
Yeah, I
two
mean, I think
conversations happening.
right, right. Yeah, but I think that is for most of these brands the consumer that they're going after, and again, maybe aspirational, maybe in reality, but I think for many of these, that's the consumer that they're going after. So I think, is it next year we're going to see something maybe a little bit more connected to that?
Yeah, or to be having the denim. I think it's just an interesting fact that they're like, because denim, as you've said, is always like traditionally back to school, right? But
Mhm.
the truth is that back to school right now is BAMA rush, which is much more like tennis skirts and like, that whole like vibe. And there ain't a pair of jeans on that campus, like not for a mile. So, like, is it that you are pushing the like? I think maybe they're pushing the product at a consumer who is in a different headspace at this time of year, and they haven't actually figured out like that the consumer is over here having this conversation, and they're over here having this conversation at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to be a yes and. It's always they're making so much of their annual dollars from this period of time within denim, all of these brands for sure. So it's not a strategy that they could change from a product standpoint, but I could see it for sure as a yes and of how are you doing maybe this type of denim campaign, but also positioning denim in a way, or at least kind of seeing that's more relevant.
I'd be curious to see the numbers on denim like now for
Yeah,
college.
yeah.
If anyone has those numbers, please drop
Yes.
them in my inbox.
Yes, would love to know that. Would love to know also other campaigns that you're seeing that we didn't talk about that we should be talking about, specifically denim. I would love to hear, and then thoughts on the campaigns that we talked about.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Till next time, stay curious.
That was it for this episode of Good Thinking. Don't forget to tune in next week.
If you found this valuable, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app.
And don't forget to read on Substack for even more insights.
And if you really liked it, drop us a heart. We'd love to hear from you.
Ciao. Until next time.